If you really want me to summarize this whole class in 3 seconds, the way to really reach financial freedom is to increase your income, decrease your expenses, and invest the rest. That's literally the story of how I became financially independent.
Before the presentation, check out these clips from the latest More Than Money episodes.
Financial literacy in our community is one of the biggest things we got to promote and push.
I think it's the new civil rights issue.
Debt is definitely a form of enslavement.
With this whole Target situation, I feel like we need to focus more on how the money can stay inside of our community.
Very important.
Rather than where it's going out.
Welcome to the More Than Money Activation Series.
If you're here, 9 times out of 10, you may need some clarity with money, you may want more confidence with money, or you're ready to do something different financially than what you've seen before. My name is Brianna Moore, and I am the founder of More Productions Media, where we house 2 amazing podcasts. One is a financial literacy podcast, where we dive deep into people's stories and try to get the actionable items and dig out the gems that they've used to create financial freedom, financial stability, or either a financially profitable or revenue-producing business. So if you feel like this is something that you want to stay and watch, I welcome you to do so. We rarely talk about our financial health. Unfortunately, that's what's been holding us back as a community. I want to be the one to break that cycle. So the first thing that I would like for you guys to answer, or a question that I would like for you to sit with, is what is your first memory of money? And if you want, you can pause this video. One of my first memories of money probably wasn't the best. A lot of people won't believe this. However, I did make the varsity cheerleading team in high school. What comes with that is a $350 price tag back in the day. But I had a little money saved up. My mom, she didn't really have it to give me. So she's like, you know what? Like, try to go out and ask some people around you if they have it. Cool. So I go out and I ask a family member, and he says like, yeah, for sure. I'll definitely give you the money. Let me know when it's due. Cool. I'm like, yes, I've raised the money to get this. I go to finally seek that help from that family member. And the memory that I have of this conversation is probably the reason why I'm extremely hyper independent now. But this person looked at me dead in my soul and told me to stay out of his pockets. And I remember that like it was yesterday. So, you know, I'm an extremely spiritual person, so I don't believe that anything happens by mistake. I think that we all go through things in order to bring the jewels up from beneath the surface up to where we are now. So I'm not sure if I'd be having this conversation with you if that didn't happen to me. Yeah, it wasn't something that was great, but it's something that happened. So that's one of my first memories of money. Second question, where do you feel confident with money? I really want you to sit with it. Where are you good with money? Are you a good saver, philanthropic, meaning that you donate to charities? Are you really good with taxes? Like where are you good with money? This is going to be important when we have these conversations surrounding financial literacy, because those are your strengths. Those are the things that we have to celebrate. Take a moment, pause this video if you feel like you need to sit with this question. Third and final question, which is what I had to ask myself before I started my financial literacy journey. And it's, where do you feel lost with money? Are you a habitual credit card user? Are you in a ton of debt? Does family depend on you for a lot of money? Are you extremely successful and still living paycheck to paycheck? Are you at a job that you don't like and you have to penny pinch? This is the real question that gets to the nitty gritty of exactly what we're here to address. Because 9 times out of 10, somebody else is going through the same thing that you're going through. However, that's why you're here. So let's get into today's highlight, the ABCs of financial literacy. I'm here to tell you, I am not a person who's ever worked on Wall Street. I'm not a person who grew up with a lot of money. I didn't go to school for finances, and I don't have a business degree. However, I am financially independent. And these are the steps that I use to get that way. So 1, automation. We'll talk about what that means. But basically, the gist of automation is to automate a percentage of your paycheck, whatever income that you have, allocate some of that money per month to go into a savings account automatically. I don't care if it's $1, $5, $10. Make sure that is something that you can set and forget. B, building. Specifically, building wealth. So then we get into investing and ownership. However, we can't start building until we have about 3 to 6 months of savings in our account. So that's why the A, automation, comes before the B, building. And then C, cash flow. How to keep that money coming in. 1/4 of people in the world who are making over 6 figures are still living paycheck to paycheck. So it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. To dive a little bit deeper to the automation piece, before we even talk about automating cash flow, we need to define the percentage breakdown of expenses. Let's just say you get a paycheck. The rule is usually 50, 30, 20. So 50% of your income from that paycheck goes towards your needs. Your needs include your household expenses such as food, clothing, cell phone, shelter. These primary expenses, non-negotiable. 30% of your income can go to your wants. So things such as eating out, subscriptions. I know some people don't feel like a subscription is a want, it's a need. However, it is considered a want. Or vacations, brand name upgrades, luxury versions of basic things. This is usually where people go wrong when they get a raise or when they start to make more money, is they upgrade their lifestyle. If you really want me to summarize this whole class in 3 seconds, the way to really reach financial freedom is to increase your income, decrease your expenses, and invest the rest. That's literally the story of how I became financially independent. So we've talked about where the 50% goes, where the 30% goes. The 20% goes into your savings. This is the piece that I really think that you should automate. 20%. If that's too much for you, because you know your budget way better than I do, then of course we can tweak it to whatever. I just need you guys saving. And specifically, I would like for it to go into a high yield savings account. So my favorite high yield savings account is Marcus by Goldman Sachs. And I'll put the link below. A high yield savings account is better for you for your financial health rather than a regular bank account. They're going to pay you more interest on your money than a regular savings account will. Banking is the best game in town. It's one of the biggest businesses in the world. And they spend millions, if not billions of dollars on marketing to acquire you. So that shows how valuable your money is. However, they do give you interest on your money, but it's not that much. Let's go into this case study, which I think people will enjoy. And it may resonate with a few people. The case study is called When Money Has No Assignment. This person works consistently. Their bills are paid on time. They have no major financial crisis. However, something just feels really uneasy to them about money. Nothing is wrong, but nothing feels secure. Now, the situation. She receives an unexpected $1,200. How many of us have received an unexpected $1,200? I can tell you, all of us have when those stimulus checks came out. I would like to know what you guys did with those stimulus checks, but let's just say she gets this $1,200. The question that I want you guys to ask is, what should this money do? Again, this person is a person who has no major financial crisis. Her bills are paid on time. She works consistently, so she's got cash flow. She just feels really uneasy about money. And I know that's a vague interpretation because we didn't talk anything about the amount of debt that she has or the amount of spending that she does or what her expenses are. However, with the information that you know, if you were put in this person's shoes, what would you do with the money? And you don't necessarily have to say it out loud, but just notice what your body wants to do. Is your body like, oh yeah, we going to the casino? Is your body like, oh, I'm gonna get this new video game that I've been wanting? Or is it, maybe I should save that? You may have kids and they may want to take them on a trip or something. Just whatever your body wants to do, I want you to sit with it. The fourth part of this situation is Alex is going through the same thing that you guys are going through. She's having all of these different thoughts in her head, but she starts thinking a few things. 1, I should be responsible. 2, I deserve something really nice. Or 3, I should save it, but for what? What am I saving for? What I'm wondering is, which of these thoughts sounds most familiar to you? The big piece of this question that will hopefully bring us back to the answer that we should want to do or that our body feels is best for us. I'm going to ask you this. If money were a tool, what would you want it to help you build? Some people like me, stability is my love language. I like for my money to be barefoot and pregnant. I like to have my money have money babies. I personally like to invest in things that will make more money. But that may be different for you. If money were a tool, what would you want it to help you build? But this is a big part of understanding if you're even going to be able to have these conversations about money and really start to hone in on what it is that you want from financial freedom. If you've come up with a word, circle that word and ask yourself, if Alex used the word that you put on your card, what would the money do? What would she do with the $1,200? And I'll let you sit with that. The next part here is very near and dear to my heart, and it's the building phase, which is the building wealth phase. I was reading a book called Black Like Me, and once you get past the part where it's about a white man kind of cosplaying as a black man before a good cause, he really wanted to understand the intricacies of racism that Black people were facing. What other way to do that rather than to go to a doctor and get a treatment that's technically only supposed to be done for vitiligo to darken your skin and to actually submit yourself into society as that person. That's not the point that I'm trying to make here. However, it is an extremely interesting story, an extremely interesting plot. The story that I'd like to get to is a piece of the story that's very minuscule that a lot of people may skip over. And I don't even hear this talked about a lot when the book has been talked about before. Like, this guy's been on Oprah, she's interviewed him, and I don't really hear this talked about. There was a time where he looked black and he went up to Atlanta. Apparently, there was all of these different leaders there. I believe Jesse Jackson and a few other leaders. But they went to the county to see if they could purchase a block of houses because they wanted to start building their own neighborhoods, which I think is amazing. The county or whatever municipality they went to granted them the right to fulfill this vision. They're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. You can build these houses or whatever on this specific block. And this was a huge deal back in the day in the 60s, because at that time, those were times where you get killed just for being black. So the fact that these men in Atlanta were spearheading this vision to own a block of houses, it was pretty innovative. So they get permission to purchase these houses, and they go now to the lender. The lender does not lend to them specifically because they are black. I'm not going to say the word that the book said, but they're not lending to them because they're black. Instead of sulking, they said, okay, cool. They raised the money themselves. After the lender found out that they raised the money themselves, the lender came back with a whole different attitude and then wanted to help them out with the loan. And I tell that story because I think that ownership and equity and owning your own things is so important. And that's not a conversation that I hear a lot. I don't hear that a lot in the black community, even with the whole Target situation. I understand we've caused them to have lawsuits. I believe their shareholders tried to sue them because they didn't know that rolling back DEI would cause the stock to drop. What I would have proposed is to hit it like a sniper. Do one target at a time. Have that one target go out of business. And we as a community potentially come in, negotiate how to buy the building that target was in, and we start our own business and we support it. That's my general idea about it. However, I haven't heard too much of that opinion floating around. I just wanted to lay the foundation for our step that we're going into to talk about building. Now, there's various kinds of building or protection. And I don't think that you should start building wealth building wealth. You should start building wealth as soon as possible. But I don't think that it's fiscally responsible to start investing unless you have about 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up in your savings account. Once your savings equals 3 months, at least 3 months of expenses, I think that you've created a good base that allows you to move forward so that money can support your investing journey. I'm not a financial advisor. Please consult a professional before you make any investment decisions. But investing is one of the reasons, is the primary reason as to why I am able to take care of myself financially without needing a job. So again, various kinds of building or protection. You need to have health insurance. A lot of us do have this because of our jobs. Not having health insurance will bankrupt you. You need to have an emergency fund, which is, of course, 3 months of expenses. Most people, or I would say 70% of people in the United States, do not have an emergency fund. Specifically, they don't have $1,000 in an account in case of an emergency. So if you feel like you're the only one, you're not. And this is not just a certain group of people. This is 70% of the United States total. Legal and structural protection. When you start to talk about money and investing, you need your beneficiaries updated. You need your will updated. You need a POA for, if you were to get sick, who's making your medical decisions. And of course, debt protection, which means you manage your high interest debt and you avoid lifestyle inflation. And of course, we can get into the different types of investments that I would recommend. The disclaimer still stands. Me personally, when I started investing, I started in stocks. I like the Vanguard stocks. My favorite stock is Apple. When I got my stimulus check, my check went right into Apple. I didn't use it for anything else because I knew what my vision was and I was disciplined enough to use it, to put it there. And the stock price has gone up significantly. So in the next video, we'll talk more about investing, but right now we'll move into cash flow. So the cash flow comes after your foundation is established. So putting your money to work, rather than letting the money sit by the side, you intentionally allocate those funds towards income producing assets. And I want to say this too, if you're not an entrepreneur, then don't own a business. But what I will say is you should treat yourself like a business, your life. So if you were to get a house, that's technically your headquarters. And if you are to get an LLC, I truly think that if you are not an entrepreneur, you shouldn't do it because unfortunately you have to be a bit obsessed with your business in order for it to grow, and consistency beats education every single time. If you don't like what you're doing, it's not going to thrive and you're going to be hustling backwards. So if you don't necessarily want to have a business with the LLC, I will say sometimes you can invest in other people's businesses, and that would be the stock market, your 401k. There's a book called The Automatic Millionaire that talks about people who only invest in their 401k and get a significant return, and they retire millionaires. If you want to be hands off completely. And of course, we'll talk more about that. Where are investors putting their money in 2026? It's February now. It's February 2026. Where do you think investors are putting their money? Do you think stocks or real estate? Right now, per Google, top investments in 2026 include a mix of growth and stability. And what is yielding the investors mostly growth and stability are stocks. So S&P 500 index funds. So those are the stocks on the stock market, dividend stocks, technology and growth stocks like Apple and Nvidia. And then, of course, real estate investment trust, which are REITs, REITs. And I will give you a little gem here as well. One company that you may have heard of called Chick-fil-A is actually a private company. You are not able to invest in Chick-fil-A privately at all. However, they do have a REIT on the stock market, a real estate investment trust. And I believe it's called Four Corners Property Trust, FCPT. So that's kind of a backdoor way to invest in Chick-fil-A. I believe they own the real estate or maybe the land or something that Chick-fil-A was built, that the Chick-fil-A's are built on. Chick-fil-A is a franchise. So that's something. When you start to really dig into this stuff, it gets really. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Those are my ABCs. If you're into Dave Ramsey and that type of generation, I believe he has 4 ways to win with money 100% of your time. Number 1 is budget. Number 2 is get out of debt. Number 3 is to live on less than you make. And number 4 is to save. So he doesn't really have too much about investing on here. But technically, it's the same. I feel like his steps kind of align with mine's. However, it doesn't have the investment piece there. So definitely stay tuned and we'll catch you on the next one. And remember, it's always about a little more than money. Peace.